What's going on, guys, and welcome to another tutorial here on our channel, The Guide. My name is Valerio, and we have seen lots of you guys' comments saying, can we have a formation guide or some player instruction videos? And we've heard you, and there are videos coming up on that topic. But in the meantime, if you're interested, I would recommend checking out our Instagram down below, because we're starting a new format where weekly we're going to be sharing, a formation with a certain topic, for example, maybe a comeback formation, and showing you guys which ones we would choose and the instructions for that formation. So, of course, if you're interested, again, check out the link in the description, follow us on Instagram as well. But today, however, we're going to be looking at another defensive concept, and more specifically, the drag back. How do you stop the drag back? How do you defend the drag back? Because it's one of the most commonly used skill moves that you're going to have to face, whether you use it or not yourself. Your opponents will. What makes the drag back so deadly is that your opponent, as he performs it, he has so many options as to where to exit, and while he's actually performing it, looking at your moves, he can then decide at the very last second from which side to exit. So it definitely wouldn't hurt to know how to make it as hard as possible for your opponent to beat you with a drag back, as it's arguably one of the most important defensive concepts for FIFA 20. The reason why the skill is so tough to defend is especially due to the fact that it's so unpredictable. You can exit in so many different directions, and we cover that more in depth in a video that talks about the most effective basic skill moves in the game. So if you haven't already watched it, I definitely recommend that you would. For that reason, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to stop every drag back, because there are so many different variations on top of infinite amount of in-game scenarios. So the best bet you have is to get accustomed to general defensive concepts. And so before I show specific clips that we can analyze, the first thing to keep in mind when trying to learn how to stop and defend dragbacks is that the window of opportunity to tackle a player, if you intend to tackle someone performing a dragback, is right after they exit. Not during, not before, but right after they exit. And if you move too quickly beforehand or throughout the dragback, you'll play right into your opponent's hands. And that's because they want nothing more for you to perform the first move while they're still deciding in which direction to exit. The next important thing is to always hold the jockey button L2 or LT on your controller as the dragback is being performed before you decide to make your move. This allows you to make yourself bigger, anchor yourself down, and avoid moving around too much. After all, like I mentioned, your opponent wants nothing more for you to move around all over the place before he exits the dragback, because that tells him exactly where he needs to go. You'll also want to keep in mind who is performing the dragback that you are defending, where on the pitch it's being performed, so that you can hopefully push them on their weak foot if they have a 4-star or 3-star weak foot, or at the very least to a low risk area of the pitch, which would be to the sides and away from the goal. Finally, always keep in mind that if you don't have to tackle, don't tackle. If you don't see the opportunity, don't blindly jump in. Sometimes less is more, and your opponent will eventually continue to do dragbacks because he is thrown off by the fact that you're not taking the bait and you're not opening up options for him. Eventually, he will lose control. Like I mentioned, however, it's a very dynamic move, so let's get into some specific clips to hopefully help you understand how I implement these concepts for every specific situation. And now let's look at specific clips so that I can show you guys my thought process and how the previous mentioned concepts actually get applied in in-game situations. And here my opponent gets the ball to his Cristiano Ronaldo as he approaches the side of my penalty box. And first things first, I've got the jockey button activated, so I'm allowed myself to be anchored down and I'm ready for him to make the first move wherever he decides to go. Now, we've done a good job of pushing his Cristiano Ronaldo out to the side of the field, even if he is on his strong foot, on his right foot. And speaking of his strong foot, using a drag back to fake cutting inside and proceeding straight wouldn't make sense in this situation, even though it would bring him to his right foot, because he'd be continuing straight on a path where I have my two defenders. As a result, we can anticipate that because of where he is on the pitch, because of where we pushed him out, he'll still try and drag back exit into the inside to bring him closer to the center of the field. But we wait for the first move nonetheless. That's the whole purpose of using the jockey button. And when we do strike, we're ready and easily snatch the ball away. As you may have noticed, not all concepts will always be applicable. We just talked about factors like the jockeying, the area of the pitch, and who our opponent was selecting to drag back in order to anticipate his decision. But what happens in more central situations of the pitch, commonly against very used players in FIFA 20 that have a 5-star weak foot, so you can't really anticipate where you might want him to turn as well. This clip is the epitome of such a situation because Neymar has the ball on the edge of our box, and this is truly an uncomfortable place to be in. So knowing how to stop this can not only help you concede fewer goals, but at the same time it will let your opponent know that he will have to do something special to score on you. As usual, first things first, we have the jockey button activated. It really is an important concept that perhaps gets applied almost every time, if not every time, unlike some of the other factors. However, to anchor ourselves down before we commit too much, this time, though we can do that, the risks are so much greater. First of all, our opponent has the ball with Neymar. Like I said, someone with a 5-star weak foot, he can turn to both sides with ease. Second of all, the area of the pitch is a little bit different this time. He's really central, so that also means that at first glance, he can go wherever he wants. But that being said, what you can think about beforehand, or actually what you should be keeping in mind before these situations arises, because otherwise you won't have time to deal with it, is what kind of dragbacks has your opponent been doing all game? Does he always turn at a 90-degree angle? Does he always proceed straight? Keep that in mind, although don't rely on it too much because someone can always mix it up. Here, however, the main factor will be that even though that near post finishing is really strong, so you'd think he would go on his right foot, it still benefits our opponent to turn on Neymar's left foot, because turning on his right, while it might deceive me with my Ferdinand, would still leave me open to switch the 2 players down at the bottom and run directly into the line of the shot. Main hero, as usual, however, turns out to be the jockey button, as it allows us a staple in our defensive game to not give out any space and be able to delay our reaction as much as possible to the last second. And now in this clip, it'll be a lot easier for me to show you guys my thought process in a dragback situation where I can actually anticipate with much fewer risks than the example we just went over. Our opponent is on the wing with his player Kyle Walker, and as he initiates the drag back, I have 2 players in the vicinity of the situation, one of which I'm already controlling myself, and the other who covers the inside where Walker might want to turn back on the inside and pass to someone on the edge of the box. The player I'm currently selecting doesn't really need to move any more. He is right where I want him to be. In any case, my opponent would want to drag back towards the byline. And for that reason, I also anticipate that that's where my opponent wants to go. And so because that player is already in a good spot, I switch to my other player for safety, for insurance, just to be sure I have everything blocked, and I push him to where I actually anticipated him to go. And as I do that, my anticipation of leaving behind a player who is already in a good spot gets rewarded, and the player I chose to select again only acted as insurance to the situation. So you can see in this case how I used the players around me, the area of the pitch where my opponent was, to close him off and send him in a low risk area where he didn't really have any options. The dragback is clearly a really meta move this year, and you don't really have to use it if you want to win, but you definitely need to know how to defend it because everyone uses it. And whether you want extra wins in FUT Champs, more skill rating in division rivals, or you simply want to win those tougher 50-50 games, learning to tackle this move is something you simply cannot avoid. It's kind of similar to the croqueta from FIFA 19, not necessarily in how overpowered it is or how much it should be nerfed, but in how common it is in so many people's attacks. And it was something I had to realize for myself as well, to keep calm and just understand that it's better to hold your ground and evaluate the situation rather than running around in panic anytime someone initiates a drag back. But nonetheless, that'll be it from me today. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you found this useful, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. We also want to thank our elite supporters over on Patreon, and if you're interested, you can become a patron today to support the channel as well as receive cool benefits in return over at patreon.com/BPG The Guide.